Almeda, when youth ministers are getting together and talking about how they want to enliven their ministries, you often hear two different frames of reference. We have to be creative. This is a new moment. These kids have different sensibilities, and we have to create the new for them so that we can connect with them, learning from their culture and giving it back to them in a way that points towards God. But you'll hear just as often youth ministers talking about, no, we need to go back to ancient practices and figure out how to put candles around the warehouse and reinvent or bring forward what they were doing in Benedictine monasteries in 585. And you've offered us a way of avoiding the traps of an either-or approach. Help us understand the more synthetic approach that you're commending.
Right. One of the things is that it's impossible for us to, it's going to be too much work for us to reinvent the wheel. That's unnecessary. Most youth ministers don't have that much time. The other thing is that it's impossible for us to go back to 500 AD. But what we have, is an opportunity to see or invite young people and youth ministers into thinking about the fact that they're standing within a cloud of witnesses. They are part of a larger Christian community, a heritage, a history. So we don't want them to forget that. We want them to be able to study some ancient practices, but also then to ask the question of, what does this look like now? Or why? What was the why behind the practice? What was the purpose? What was the function of the practice? How did the practice shape certain monks or certain people in a particular time? For example, we have a lot of different ways of praying. I would never ever say we should stop teaching young people to pray the Lord's Prayer. That's an ancient prayer that I want them to learn and know. But if that's the only prayer I teach them, have I actually invited them into fruitful prayer life, or a prayer life that's going to actually be something that they are now going to say, how does this become something I sustain or pass on? So part of what is happening with inviting young people to think about youth ministry or as in terms of Christian practices is that we're actually saying, alrighty, here's the tradition you're standing on, and this is the way that you are going to live into it. It's not going to look exactly the same, but it's not going to be something completely disconnected either. Instead, it's going to be, in some ways, for very bad metaphor, you're going to take a garment that's been handed down and you're going to modify it. You're going to get it tailored to fit you. So if someone gives me a suit coat, I've got to take it to my tailor, and we're going to take it in a little bit or take it out a little bit. So now it's essentially the same garment, but now I've made it fit. Or sometimes I may not even keep the garment. The garment might used to have been a coat, I make a quilt out of it. So you see strands and parts of a tradition that helps you to know you're not out here alone. But you also see an invitation that says you're going to have to do something, a responsibility for this to become your own in order for you to be able to keep it or for it to become useful for you. And this is what we're trying to get at with inviting young people into Christian practices. Because all too often, we think about it and just simply want to say, do it the old way or come up and do something new. And neither are going to sustain young people. They're going to either reject the old for being too old or the new of being too daunting.